They say the gods came from the sky, but inside the Vatican, some believe the truth was recorded in sealed corridors buried beneath the earth, descriptions of beings that were never human, and a weapon unlike anything from this world. For centuries, the Vatican has been called the center of faith, but it may also be the greatest vault of forbidden knowledge ever built. Hidden texts, sealed prophecies, and events the Church has never explained. Before we open those doors together, hope you've been sleeping okay lately. It really matters. Secret passages and visitors from beyond. Buried beneath the Vatican lies something far more mysterious than ancient tombs or forgotten relics. It's a network of sealed corridors, a labyrinth few have ever entered, let alone spoken about. But in the early 20th century, one man claimed he had. His name was Professor Genry Ludwig, a Russian scholar with a mind sharpened by science and a reputation unshaken by myth. According to his testimony, Ludwig was granted rare access to the Vatican's hidden archives, an underground expanse housing over 85 kilometers of shelves. More than 35,000 volumes by his count filled the chambers with records of history that never made it into textbooks. But it wasn't the political chronicles or letters between monarchs that stunned him. It was something else entirely. Among the pages, he claimed, were accounts of beings not from this world. Descriptions of entities who had visited Earth long before the rise of empires. Ludwig said some texts spoke of non-human presences during the birth of ancient civilizations. Egypt, Mesopotamia, even the Mayans. These weren't vague legends. They were detailed, structured, and chillingly precise. One document, he alleged, told of a weapon, silent, ancient, and powerful enough to melt stone. It had reportedly been used in Babylon and sounded eerily similar to modern nuclear technology. Ludwig believed the Vatican was protecting not just religious doctrine, but a secret history of humanity itself. He never published photos. He never produced physical proof. Every word we know comes from his memory. And so, naturally, skeptics dismiss him as a fantasist. But when we look at the sudden bursts of progress in ancient history, when primitive societies seemingly leaped into advanced knowledge overnight, we have to ask, did something or someone intervene? And if the Vatican does possess documents like these, locked away in vaults beyond reach, then maybe the question isn't what are they hiding, but rather why? The trial of a dead man. In the long and troubled history of the Vatican, few stories match the sheer absurdity and horror of what happened in the year 897. It wasn't a scandal hidden behind gilded doors. It wasn't whispered corruption or secret war. No, this event unfolded in full view, sanctioned by the Church itself. A legal proceeding unlike anything the world had seen before or since. It was a trial, but the man on trial wasn't alive. Pope Formosus had died months earlier, yet his successor, Pope Stephen VI, was not content to let him rest in peace. Driven by rage, politics, or something darker, Stephen ordered that Formosus's decaying corpse be unearthed from its tomb. The remains were dressed in full papal robes, seated upright on a throne, and brought into a court of bishops to face judgment. To maintain the appearance of due process, a deacon was appointed to speak on behalf of the dead pope. The charges were strange and vague, accusations of corruption, of having illegitimately claimed the papacy. No real defense was possible, of course. That wasn't the point. This was not about justice. It was about humiliation, about erasing someone from memory by force. The trial ended, unsurprisingly, in a guilty verdict. But the sentence wasn't symbolic. It was brutal. 3 fingers, those once used to bless, were cut from the corpse's right hand. The papal garments were stripped. And finally, the desecrated body was dragged through the streets of Rome and thrown into the Tiber River like garbage. Stephen VI, who had orchestrated the entire spectacle, didn't remain in power long. Months later, he was seized by an angry mob, imprisoned, and ultimately strangled to death. His immediate successors died in quick succession, many under mysterious conditions, as if the throne itself had been cursed by the act. Historians still debate the motives behind the trial. Was it a power struggle between Roman factions, a symbolic purge, a public warning to rivals? Whatever the reason, it revealed something chilling. At that time, the papacy was less a seat of holiness and more a battlefield for dominance. The Church wielded its rituals not just for salvation, but for vengeance. This wasn't fiction. Every grotesque detail was recorded in the annals of history, and yet few today know the story ever happened. A story the Bible forgot to tell. For most of us, the Bible paints a clear, sacred image of Jesus, divine, blameless, and distant from the everyday struggles of human life. But what if that image wasn't the whole story? What if a different version of his life once existed and was deliberately erased? Hidden in the archives of ancient libraries, a manuscript written in Syriac during the 6th century offers a radically different account. Scholars who've studied its fragile pages believe it may be a lost gospel, one that casts Jesus not just as a divine figure, but as a man who loved, who wept, and who lived far beyond what tradition allows. According to this forgotten text, Jesus shared a deep, sacred bond with Mary Magdalene, not only as companions but as husband and wife. It goes even further, suggesting they had children, an idea that upends nearly every foundation of modern Christian doctrine. But the shock doesn't end there. The manuscript describes Mary not as a mere follower, but as a co-redeemer, a divine counterpart, the daughter of God. If true, this version of the story would shift everything we've ever been taught. It challenges the notion of a celibate Messiah. It reframes the role of women in early Christianity. And it raises the question, why was this narrative hidden? Some experts argue the document was dismissed because it came from a heretical sect. Others believe it was removed on purpose to preserve a cleaner, more controllable version of Christ, a version without emotion, without partnership, without scandal. The Vatican has never recognized this gospel. The original church fathers refused to canonize it, but fragments still survive, tucked away in corners of ancient collections, waiting to be found again. If this lost account holds even a kernel of truth, it would not destroy faith. It would deepen it. Because maybe the most profound version of Jesus isn't one above humanity, but one who walked through it completely. When the sky above the Vatican flashed a sign on an ordinary afternoon in June 2007, as the summer sun poured over the cobblestones of St. Peter's Square, something extraordinary happened. So strange, in fact, that most people who saw it still struggle to describe it. Hovering silently above the great dome of the Vatican Basilica was a glowing disc. No sound, no exhaust, just a radiant object suspended in the air as if watching. Its surface shimmered with a metallic hue, part silver, part amber, catching the light in a way that felt unnatural. It remained still, unmoving for several long moments as tourists and pilgrims paused mid-step, mouths open, eyes fixed to the sky. Some reached for their phones, snapping photos and capturing grainy video clips. For a brief window of time, social media lit up with the sighting. And then just as suddenly the object was gone, vanished without a trace, as if it had never been there at all. In a world where drones and holograms might explain away such phenomena, this one didn't fit. There were no official air traffic alerts, no military exercises, no noise, and this wasn't a single witness claiming a blurry light in the distance. Dozens of people, maybe more, stood beneath it, watched it, documented it, and yet very little was said afterward. No press conference, no explanation from church officials, no investigation made public. The incident faded into the background noise of Vatican life, absorbed by the marble silence of the city. But those who remember it, they haven't forgotten. Some believe it was a warning, others call it a visitation. But one question lingers louder than the rest. Why here? Why would something, if not of this earth, choose the Vatican of all places? Not a military base, not a government building, but the spiritual center of the Catholic world, a place that claims centuries of metaphysical authority, a place that holds secrets, deep ones. If you believe the stories told by ex-insiders and rare researchers, the Vatican holds knowledge far older than what's printed in modern texts. Some say its archives include references to otherworldly beings, ancient contacts, even objects of non-human origin. Most of these claims are impossible to verify, but if any of it is true, if the Vatican has known for centuries that we are not alone, then the appearance of that silent craft over the dome may not have been an accident. And not to the public, not to governments, but to them, the men in robes, the guardians of sacred texts and unspoken history, a sign that whatever pact, whatever understanding may have existed, still stands, or worse, is being watched. Of course, skeptics offer simpler answers: atmospheric anomalies, optical illusions, misidentified aircraft. They ask why the footage disappeared so quickly, or why media didn't cover it more aggressively. But that's the point, isn't it? Some things don't get covered. Some things vanish on purpose. Because if the most sacred city on Earth became the site of a UFO encounter in broad daylight, and that story was buried in silence, then maybe it wasn't the first time, and maybe it won't be the last. The demon who passed through the gates. For centuries, the Vatican has been seen as the last stronghold of divine light, an impenetrable fortress where evil dares not step. But one man believed that darkness had already found its way inside. Father Gabriel Amorth wasn't a myth or a fringe figure. He served as the Vatican's chief exorcist for over 2 decades, performing more than 70,000 exorcisms in his lifetime. He worked not from some distant monastery, but from within Vatican City itself, in a quiet office on the 3rd floor of an unassuming building. And what he witnessed there changed everything. Amorth didn't speak in metaphors. He claimed the devil was not a symbol, but a sentient force, one with language, will, and the ability to disguise itself. And according to him, that force had breached the most sacred walls on Earth. He recounted 2 moments when he believed evil had physically infiltrated the Vatican. The first, he believed, occurred in 1981, when the devil launched a direct attack on Pope John Paul II in a dark plot to disrupt the Church's divine mission. The second incident took place on Christmas Eve in 2008. A woman named Susanna Maiolo, of Swiss and Italian descent, suddenly rushed toward Pope Benedict XVI during midnight mass, in a moment of chaos captured by hundreds of television cameras. Although she was stopped by the Swiss Guard, Susanna's actions stirred widespread controversy, and she returned exactly 1 year later, on Christmas Eve of 2009, this time managing to knock the Pope to the ground in the middle of the sacred ceremony. Many believe she suffered from mental illness, but Father Amorth was convinced she was a tool of the devil, controlled by some dark and malevolent force. Many dismissed his claims as old-world superstition, but he stood firm. Evil, he said, doesn't always arrive with horns or fire. Sometimes it walks quietly through the gates, unnoticed until it strikes. Whether you believe him or not, one unsettling truth remains. The man tasked with confronting darkness believed it had already made it inside. The prophecies kept under lock and key. In the quiet countryside of Portugal in the spring of 1917, 3 children claimed they saw something extraordinary, a woman glowing with light who appeared to them again and again. She gave them messages, warnings, and asked that they be delivered to the world. These would later be known as the 3 secrets of Fatima. The first was a terrifying glimpse of eternal damnation, a vision of souls trapped in endless torment. The second warned that if mankind failed to repent, a second global war would erupt. Both were eventually revealed, and both, in their own way, came true. But it was the third secret that captured the world's imagination and Vatican silence. Written down by Lucia, the last surviving child, in 1943, the third message was sealed and meant to be opened in 1960. Lucia herself said that only in that year would its meaning become clear. But when the date arrived, the Vatican refused to disclose the contents. Officials claimed the prophecy was not relevant. It would take 40 more years before anything was released. And even then, many believed it wasn't the real message. The version presented spoke of a bishop dressed in white, walking among corpses, shot down by bullets. Tragic, yes, but not earth-shattering. Scholars and theologians quickly pointed out inconsistencies, questioning whether the true message had been suppressed. Some whisper that the real secret foretold the collapse of the Church from within, a spiritual crisis, a reckoning. To this day, the original text remains hidden, and the question still hangs in the air. What did Lucia really see? And why did the Vatican decide the world shouldn't know? The words that were never preached. For many, the Bible feels like a complete, untouchable record, a divine manuscript passed down unchanged across time. But what most people don't realize is that the version we read today isn't the version that always existed. In the year 1611, when the Bible was first translated into English, it included 80 books, but just a few decades later in 1684, 14 of those books were removed quietly. No announcement, no explanation, just gone. These missing texts, now called the Apocrypha, a word that means hidden in Greek, included writings like Tobit, Judith, the wisdom of Solomon, and Bel and the Dragon. For centuries, they were read, taught, and revered alongside the rest of Scripture. And then, without warning, they were discarded. Why? Some say the removed books were too complex, too symbolic, too difficult for the public to interpret. Others believe they contained teachings that conflicted with the power structure of the church. Ideas about justice, authority, even the nature of the divine, all potentially destabilizing if allowed to spread. There's even a more obscure detail that few mention. Before these changes, the name of Jesus was recorded differently, some say closer to Yahushua. As these books disappeared, so did the older pronunciations, gradually replaced by what fit the church's chosen image. No official reason has ever been given, no apology ever made, and that silence raises questions that echo through history. Were these words removed to protect the faithful or to protect authority? Today, most believers don't even know these books existed, but once they were part of the sacred story. And perhaps they still are, just waiting to be read again. The machine that watched time. In the shadows of the Vatican, a legend persists. It tells of a device unlike any other, a machine that could pierce the veil of time itself. They called it the chronovisor. According to Father Pellegrino Ernetti, a Benedictine monk and classical scholar, the chronovisor wasn't the work of fantasy, it was real. He claimed to have helped design it, alongside some of the 20th century's most brilliant minds, Enrico Fermi, the father of the nuclear age, and Werner von Braun, the architect of rocket science. Strange companions for a priest. Stranger still, their purpose, to construct a window into the past. The chronovisor, he said, could tune into echoes of history, waves of light and sound lingering in space like smoke after a fire. Using specialized alloys, antennae, and cathode ray tubes, it could reconstruct moments long gone. Not imagination, not vision, playback. Ernetti swore he had used the machine to witness ancient Roman theater and the crucifixion of Christ, but no machine was ever shown. The photographs he provided were later linked to old paintings. Critics called him a fraud. Skeptics dismissed it as a hoax, the dying dream of a priest grasping at eternity. Still, the Vatican's silence was louder than denial. No public statement, no rebuke, just a quiet refusal to speak of it. Some believe the chronovisor was dismantled, hidden away to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. Others think it never existed at all. And yet, the story endures. Because if such a machine ever did exist, one that could watch time unfold like film, then history is no longer fixed. It becomes something else entirely, something dangerous, something someone might want to keep locked away. If you've made it this far, maybe something in these stories spoke to you. Maybe not as fact, but as a question worth asking. The Vatican holds its silence. We simply ask, what lies behind it? If you're drawn to the hidden, the forbidden, and the almost forgotten, you know where to find us. Thank you and see you next time.